Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And as you know, we often talk about the hardcore business things, how to start a business, how to design a website, what your marketing should be. But I firmly believe that if we aren't healthy, both mentally and physically, it's not going to matter what we do with everything else. And so I love having experts from those various fields on the program. And so please join me in welcoming Joyce Marter to our program today. Welcome, Joyce.
Thank you so much, Deb. I'm honored and excited to be with you today.
I know we're going to have so much fun. Let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this. So Joyce Marter has been a licensed psychotherapist for over 20 years and is the founder of Urban Balance, an outpatient mental health company with 17 locations in 6 states. She is a national keynote speaker, writes the Mental Wealth blog on Psychology Today, and is a mental health thought leader. Joyce is routinely consulted as a mental health expert in the media, featured in such outlets as the Wall Street Journal, CNN, and MTV. Her book, The Financial Mindset Fix, a mental fitness program for an abundant life, was just released by Sounds True in July of 2021, and it was featured in Forbes, US Weekly, Life and Style, Women's Health, and more. So again, Joyce, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Well, I always like getting to know a little bit more about my guests. So tell us about how you got to where you are today and how you discovered that this truly is your passion in life.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a Buckeye. I'm from Ohio. And when I was an undergrad, I attended the Ohio State University.
The Ohio State. We know
Ohio
it
State.
is.
Yes, absolutely. I loved it there, by the way. Just a huge university with tons of energy, tons of diversity, and people from all over the world. And I didn't know what I wanted to study. And I was so grateful that they had a program for undecided majors that really encouraged the students to study what we love.
Okay.
And I was so interested in our psychology and how we process our emotions and our relationships and the deeper connections between us and the world around us. And I quickly learned that if I wanted to not be a waitress forever, that I would need to get a master's degree. And that brought me to the Chicago area. I attended the Northwestern University, and it was there that I felt that I found my people. Counselors are people who care about the deeper things in life and want to be of service and be part of the greater good in the world. And I found there that I received a language and a lens through which to understand myself, my life, the world around me. And I found my work as a psychotherapist to be profoundly rewarding. It is deep and high honor to work so intimately with clients, to get to know them and to support them in their healing and recovery and empower them to thrive personally and professionally. And one of the greatest blessings of being a therapist is reaping the wisdom from my amazing clients and their life experiences. And so through that, I became really passionate about destigmatizing mental health issues. I myself was afraid when I was in graduate school that my professors would see that I deal with anxiety and that they'd be like, you can't be a therapist because
No.
Right. But we all have issues.
Right.
Part of being a human being, I think we all deal with, whether it's stress, anxiety, depression, relationship issues. We're impacted by substance abuse or addiction in our families. And I believe in no shame, no stigma. Our mental health is a normal response to our nature and our nurture, and help is available and effective. So I started a business called Urban Balance,
Mhm.
which is an insurance-friendly counseling practice. I
Ah.
really wanted
Mhm.
therapy to be accessible and
Mhm.
affordable. I think it should be like going to the dentist or the
Right.
doctor.
Right. We have no problem going to the dentist or the doctor. Why shouldn't it be just as easy to deal with your mental health?
Exactly. Exactly. I think seeing a therapist is like seeing a personal trainer for your
Mhm.
mind and your
Right.
relationships. And so by accepting insurance, it makes it more affordable for clients.
Mhm.
And the business grew very quickly. And I made 1,000 mistakes. There was a period where I went through cash flow hell and I
Mhm.
lost my business partner, which was really a scary, dark time.
Mhm.
But I was able, along with my leadership team, to turn the ship around
Mhm.
and to successfully sell Urban Balance to Refresh Mental Health
Mhm.
a few years ago. And I started the business with $500, 50,000 of student loans. There
Mhm.
was one point that I put a lien on my home,
Oh.
and I was able to
Mhm.
successfully sell the company
Mhm.
when it was grossing over 5 million a year for
Wow.
more than I thought I would make in a lifetime.
Mhm.
And I did that by taking lessons I learned through my clients and my
Mhm.
clinical practice about the psychology of money.
Mm.
I became really interested in my practice about how I noticed that as clients made progress in therapy,
Mhm.
whether we were talking about depression or
Mhm.
anxiety or relationship issues, they started to earn more money.
Right.
They started to get raises and
Mhm.
promotions and started their own
Mhm.
businesses. And I was like, why is this happening? We're
Mhm.
not even talking about this.
Mhm.
And it's because we're always working on their underlying self-esteem and
Mhm.
self-worth. And as they started to feel better about themselves, they
Mhm.
started to put themselves out in the world with more confidence,
Mm.
aligning their
Mhm.
unique gifts with a need in the world,
Mhm.
being more assertive and negotiating and thinking bigger.
Mhm.
And so I began to share what I learned from my clients and through my own entrepreneurial journey in a keynote talk called The Psychology of Success.
Mm.
And that became very popular. I've given it for Fortune 500
Mhm.
companies, for universities, business schools, therapists
Mhm.
organizations. And that's what led me to write my book, because I really want to share this message with others.
Mhm.
I want to remove the shame and stigma from
Mhm.
mental health issues and
Mhm.
financial struggle. Of course, with the pandemic, that's been a global
Oh.
trauma
Mhm. Mhm.
that's wreaked financial and
Mhm.
mental health havoc.
Mhm.
So my hope is that my book is really going to help people recover and
Mhm.
prosper.
Right. Well, and we've all heard the saying that money is the root of all evil. I think in so many cases, it's the root of all of our problems. We're not making enough, so we get depressed. We're not getting the promotions, the whatever, all of those things. And so we get stressed, all of those various things. And it really is one of those things where it is kind of the hand in the glove. You have to fix one in order to fix the other. And it's not like you can say, okay, you're now going to make $100,000. That would be nice. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
But I'm sure that there's lots of things that you deal with where you're talking to people about the value, and it's kind of a weird word to use in this, but the value that they place on money. I think so many times we have the wrong expectations. We think, well, we have to be living up to everybody else's expectations, is maybe the easiest way to put it. Whether it starts obviously with our parents, and then siblings, friends, spouses, the neighbors. I mean, all of those things. When what are our own expectations and realistic expectations?
Oh my gosh, Deb, you totally get it.
I'm
And
so good.
you are so good. Oh my goodness. You totally get it. And you said a few things that I'd really like to
Mhm.
expand on. The first you said was money is the root of all evil.
Mhm.
And I think many of us have been taught through maybe cultural or religious beliefs that money is bad.
Mhm.
And in therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, our thoughts precede our emotions and our
Mhm.
behaviors. And so if we believe in our core that money is bad,
Mhm.
we may be unconsciously pushing it away.
Right.
And so what I believe, what my book is about, is that just like you said, this is about financial health and wellness. This is not about greed. This is about having financial peace, being able to pay your bills, being able to help others. I found through my own experience that as when you have more, you can help more.
Right.
You can provide jobs, you can give to charities, you have the luxury of being able to volunteer, you can be a philanthropist. And so we want to be aware of the belief systems that we've learned from our earlier life experiences or our families of origin about money.
Right.
So my dad grew up in the Great Depression. And so there was a lot of fear about scarcity. And throughout my childhood, he was working in the automotive industry, and it was the recession of the 80s. And so he was unemployed for much of my childhood and had tremendous financial anxiety. And I seemed to inherit that. And so I noticed you mentioned the $100,000 comment. And so I'd like to share a story with you. When I first started graduate school, on the first day, the professor joked and said, well, you certainly wouldn't come into the field of psychology for the money. And I was like, uh-oh.
Wait a minute.
Because I just signed $50,000 of student loans. And I was like, well, how am I going to pay this back? How am I going to support myself? So many students have that concern today. And so when I first graduated, the starting salary for a therapist in Chicago was $18,000 a year.
Ooh.
This was in the mid 90s.
And Chicago ain't a cheap place to live.
It is not. That is basically just above the poverty level. And so I heard of a student that had made $25,000. So I set that as my benchmark. And I was able to secure a job making $25,000. After a couple of years, I realized that was really also difficult to live on. And I heard of people making $35,000 a year in EAP. So I got a job making $35,000, but no more. Then a few years later, I started my private practice and I met with my friend Steve. And Steve said, Joyce, how much money do you want to make? And I was a new mom and I really needed to contribute along with my husband to pay our mortgage. And so I said, well, I'd love to make $60,000 a year. And he said, ooh, gross, 60. I want to make over 100. And I said, well, do you think that's possible? And he said, of course that's possible. That year I made 60 and Steve made over 100. So I'm like, oh my gosh, am I setting my own ceilings with self-limiting beliefs?
Did I limit myself?
And I really believe that to be true. Steve, by the way, went on to win Oprah's favorite things. He was on one Shark Tank. He's been an extremely successful entrepreneur. So I started to really work on my psychology of money. My own therapist said to me, Joyce, she said, what does money mean to you? What do you think of when I say the word money? And at this point, I'd accrued enormous debt with my business, trying to keep it afloat. And I said, oh, money is stress.
Scary.
Yes. And she said, well, no wonder you make it go away. So we have to change our thinking. So I started to think money is a resource for me to take care of myself and my loved ones and the world around me. And I'm deserving of that resource. And it really took that catastrophe where basically as my business grew, because we're insurance friendly, the more money was outstanding in insurance claims.
Right. There's a lot of things that's just floating out there.
Absolutely. And so we ran into a pickle where even though we were doing a lot of business, the cash flow wasn't quite making it. And so we had to pay payroll and rent. And I would lay awake at night with insomnia and I had panic attacks. It was incredibly stressful. My business partner, who was one of my best friends, left suddenly because of the stress, and a bunch of our staff left and clients left. And I really thought I'd have to file business bankruptcy. And it was then that I personally went through a transformation. And that was one of humility. Instead of saying to my team, like, okay, it's okay. I've got this. I'll figure it out. I said, I am so sorry. I have messed up and I need help. And once I did that, it shifted my whole life. I
Right.
felt like instead of being alone, I had support, and help came out of the woodwork from everyone, from my family, my friends, my leadership team, even my neighbors said, Joyce, you need a business valuation.
Ah.
And I didn't even know what that was. And so I went and met with the CPA. I handed him my QuickBooks file. I was in tears. I thought he would tell me that my business model didn't work, and that I'd have to file bankruptcy.
Right. And that basically you were a horrible person.
Horrible. I had so much shame and embarrassment about it, and was really scared. And that's what prevented me from seeking help sooner, which is really an aspect of ego, and something that I want to share with people, that it's so important to get that consultation and support up front. I think we all need a personal and professional board of advisors. And so he looked at my numbers and he said, Joyce, your business model truly works. You just need the proper lending and I can help you. And he, of course, also helped me make some other tweaks and making sure that my marketing and my management and things like that were to scale with the business, and was able to successfully turn it around. And he said, what's your exit plan? And I said, exit plan? I don't have that. I don't have that.
You're still trying to get in the front door.
Right. But I really had learned that I was sort of the accidental entrepreneur. I wanted to help people, but suddenly I had this company with over 100 therapists and, a lot of responsibility.
Right. And not the training to go with that.
Exactly. And so I decided I really wanted to exit the business to kind of get my liability off the table, to cash in, kind of my nest egg, and to be able to pursue my speaking and writing, which I've become so passionate about, and to share what I've learned from over 20 years of counseling. And so with his help, I was able to hire a broker. We had 50 offers 50 prospective buyers and 8 offers. And so I've written about how to select a buyer. I have some of those articles on my LinkedIn profile. And I enjoy writing about the psychology of money in my mental wealth blog on Psychology Today. And of course, with my new book coming out, that's my biggest mission, to share about the financial mindset fix.
Right. And money really is so confusing because, when we're little, we are taught, now you can't be greedy. Don't be greedy. And it doesn't even, always pertain to money. It's like, don't eat that second piece of cake. Don't be greedy about it. But we are taught, don't be greedy. And especially for those of us who are older, my mom was in the Depression also. And so, I swear she's got, every dollar she ever made somewhere. So that's not a bad thing. It's just, the way that they had to survive. But, we were taught, don't be greedy, it's bad. But at the same point, we're looking at our peers, the people on TV, whoever, who are wealthy. Whether it's extravagantly wealthy, which, I look at people and I'm like, I'm sorry, why do you need a house that has 18 bathrooms? Because then my next thought is, oh my God, cleaning 18 bathrooms.
Right. And
the rational part of me says, you dimwit, you'd have somebody to do that for you if you had 18 bathrooms. But, it's so I don't think many of us want to be the phenomenally wealthy.
No.
We do want to be comfortable. And then it comes into what is comfort, what is, we've got the other saying, keeping up with the Joneses, where, the neighbor buys a new car. Oh, we better buy a new car. The neighbor plants a bunch of new pretty plants. We better go buy a bunch of new pretty plants. Our friends, our siblings, they get promoted. Well, we better get promoted too. And it becomes this perpetual rat race, when really we were just as happy in, the little place on the corner, not having to stress over things.
Oh my gosh, you brought up another set of really awesome points. And the idea of greed comes from the scarcity mindset. And that is that there's not enough resources for all of us. So if one of us takes more, that means less for others.
Right.
So think about the toilet paper.
Right. When
situation during the
everybody went out and bought toilet paper.
and then it threw the whole system out of whack because everyone was having a scarcity mindset. An abundance mindset, which is what I talk about in my book, is the belief that there's enough love and resources, money, for all of us.
Right.
And by some of us having more, it doesn't mean that others will have less, especially if we are working toward the greater good. So I talk about conscious capitalism, earning your money in a way that does no harm, that is ethical, that is conscious of the environment, is a win-win for your employees, for your clients, that, you're doing compassionate business. And you also brought up the idea of competition with others, and that's related to ego. And I talk in my book about how healthy self-esteem is midway between diva and doormat.
Right.
So the diva, and dudes can be divas too. Diva is somebody who's kind of grandiose and entitled and not respectful of other people's boundaries. And financially, they might live beyond their means. So they want to flash all their stuff and they're not really grounded in reality, their financial reality. And so they're overspending. And then you've got the doormat, which is somebody who doesn't advocate for themselves. And you're right that those beliefs about being greedy, or I think as women, myself, I was taught to be a good girl, to be a people pleaser, to not be an imposition. And women are still dealing with the pay gap, the gender pay gap, 79 cents on the dollar of what men earn. And so we need to be assertive and negotiate. And so doormats are not respectful of their own boundaries. So I provide a lot of practical tools and tips and takeaways and proven strategies from psychology to find that happy medium of healthy self-esteem.
Right.
Where you value yourself, you value your gifts and your strengths, but you're also aware that none of us is perfect. We all have issues. We all have stuff that we need to work on. And you're also respectful of others, and you operate in a collaborative way so that you are taking care of yourself, but you're also supporting others. You're mentoring others. You're lifting others up. And I believe when we live a greater life, we are able to lift other people up. We serve as a lighthouse, a model, an example. And so I think that it really is about being of service, and it's not about materialism. You're absolutely right that stuff doesn't make us happy. Susie Orman, the financial expert, said that she noticed in her practice that self-worth leads to net worth, but it doesn't work the other way around.
Right.
So we all know people with gobs of money who are not
are horribly unhappy.
Absolutely. And so what I am teaching in my book is how to cultivate an abundant life. And an abundant life is one that includes mental well-being, physical health, loving connected relationships, work-life balance, because most of us are dealing with overwork and burnout, and also financial prosperity.
Right.
So I have, it's a program that's step-by-step with 12 mindsets that I've identified that are empirically supported to promote positive mental health and financial prosperity.
Right.
And so I have journaling exercises. Some of them are where I have you imagine that you're coming into my office for a therapy session, and I'm asking you some thought-provoking questions to get your wheels turning for some self-reflection and insight, because we all unconsciously recreate what's familiar until we become aware and we choose something better.
Right.
And I help people restructure their negative thinking and know that more is available to them. And so, yeah, it's not about keeping up with the Joneses or having more stuff. It's about being aligned with that deeper self within and your purpose in life,
Mm-hmm.
and really having the courage and the vulnerability to put yourself out in the
Mm-hmm.
world in a bigger way. When you're
Mm-hmm.
a business owner or business leader or a speaker or a writer, that takes courage
Mm-hmm.
to put yourself out in the world. And so
Right.
I want to empower
Mm-hmm.
people to do that. That's one of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite things as a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
is to mirror back to people all that's beautiful and amazing and special
Mm-hmm.
about them, and to support them and believe in them that they can live their
Mm-hmm.
best life. It
Mm-hmm.
is available, but we need to learn resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And resilience is the ability to move through challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the past year and a half has been enormously
Oh,
challenging.
oh yes. Mm-hmm.
The research showed that before the pandemic, a third of adults and 25%, a third of millennials and
Mm-hmm.
25% of adults were dealing with financial trauma
Mm-hmm.
at a level that met the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. And the pandemic just added fuel to the
Right.
fire.
Mm-hmm.
So people who had closed businesses, dealing with unemployment,
Mm-hmm.
who maybe are concerned about foreclosure
Mm-hmm.
or needing to short sale their home,
Mm-hmm.
those are all financial traumas that have
Mm-hmm.
mental health implications.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have financial stress, a normal response is to have depression,
Right.
anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people turn to substance abuse. We have symptoms of trauma
Mm-hmm.
that might impair our sleeping. We might have
Mm-hmm.
muscle tension. We might
Mm-hmm.
have physical health issues.
Right. You might have ulcers. I mean, all those various things.
All of those things. And then if our mental health is poor, that makes it more difficult for us to do well at our jobs,
Right.
and to earn money. So it
It is
impairs.
this horrible downward spiral.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of times people think about mental health as mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking about people being in crisis or
Mm-hmm.
being crazy or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And really, like I said, I think we all deal with mental health challenges, and that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
But when we promote positive mental health,
Mm-hmm.
like coping skills
Mm-hmm.
and our emotional intelligence, our ability to manage our own
Mm-hmm.
emotions effectively and to be compassionate and empathic to other people's emotions, that's going to serve us well in
Mm-hmm.
business. And so I help people with practical tools in my
Mm-hmm.
book also develop a vision for their business.
Mm-hmm.
I believe when you find a win-win-win, a business model that serves you, your clients, and your staff,
Mm-hmm.
and that the universe is going to support
Mm-hmm.
that. And I really encourage people to think big, again,
Mm-hmm.
not setting your own ceilings, because I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed in my practice, so many people say, oh, I could never do that.
Right.
So I challenge people. A lot of times my clients will say that they're going for a promotion,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll ask them, well, do you think you're going to get it? And many times people will be humble and they'll say,
Right.
oh, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of tough competition and I'm not quite ready.
Mm-hmm. So
And
they've
then,
kind of sealed their fate before they ever tried.
you should be a therapist, Deb. That's exactly it. It's
Mhm.
self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'll say, well, then you probably won't.
Mhm.
And they're usually kind of taken aback because
Right.
I like to be a warm, fuzzy kind of
Mhm.
therapist, but you're exactly right. If we
Mhm.
don't believe in ourselves, how the heck is somebody else going
Right.
to believe in us?
Mm-hmm. And it is so complicated because we're not saying that you can't have the fancy house and the big the fancy cars and all of those things. I think a big part of it is being practical about it. I mean, if you're mortgaged to the hilt, if you're so worried that if you miss one paycheck, you're going to go bankrupt. Well, then, you need to have now, clearly there's extremes on either end. But if you're the average person that really has taken out a bunch of debt just to have the big house, the fancy cars, all of those things, then that's what you need to rethink. If you've earned enough that you're covering that and you're not worried about it, then go for it. I mean, that's okay.
Yes, it's about finding that financial
Mhm.
piece. So I have a wheel exercise. I have a lot of wheel exercises in my book that I'm excited about. And one of them is the financial health wheel.
Mhm.
So each spoke of the wheel is a different aspect of our financial health.
Mhm.
And I invite readers to measure how they're doing on each area. And it helps us identify our areas of strength. Like maybe you're doing a good job with saving or investing.
Right.
But maybe you're not doing a good job with meeting with financial planners or with negotiating at work. And so I help you identify what are your areas that you can improve on, and then give practical steps and tools to do that.
Right. And it is, especially if it's conversations with a spouse, with a business partner, all of those. I mean, those are very, very difficult conversations. And I think a lot of times, especially as women, we give in. It's like, oh, okay. We'll back to, you were saying before, we're pleasers. And so, it might be that we don't want the big house, or we do want the big house. But we'll say, oh, honey, it's whatever you want. And things like that. And then we do, when we really start comparing ourselves to others, that's where the trouble comes in. I remember many years ago, when I had my 10th high school reunion. Now, mind you, I had a graduating class, you're going to die, of 32. My high school graduating class was 32. So, we're getting ready. It's 16 boys, 16 girls. It was really,
that's amazing.
I know, when we walked in, for graduation, but we're getting together, and as you can imagine, I was one of the people in charge, right? Yeah,
of course.
And so I'm talking with the other person that I'm working with, and we're thinking of the awards, because you always give awards at reunions. Who came the furthest? Who has the most kids? Yada yada yada. And she wanted to give the "Who is the most successful" award. Now, even at 28, I went, no.
Good for you.
Well, and I said, how is that defined? Yeah. And for her, it truly was who's making the most money.
Right.
And I, and I said, and how do we know that? Are we going to ask? And I said, the stay-at-home mom who has 4 kids might actually be the most successful, because she's successful in her own head. And the person who is making $250,000 is absolutely miserable. And then it really drove home when, we actually managed to track down, I think, almost everybody. When there's only 32, it's, and you still are, a lot of people in the same place. It's pretty easy. And I remember there was one person who, and I had known this gentleman from kindergarten all the way through, and, got his information from his mom. Now, he was at that point a captain for an airline. So a pilot, at the highest level. And he said, but just put down that I work in the baggage department. And I went,
Interesting.
And he said, nobody will believe that I'm a pilot. And I felt so bad. And I said, oh, no, you might want to downplay, but I ain't gonna, and now he's an international pilot. I mean, extremely, does what I should, here I'm putting my own, I think he's doing very well. But I mean, that the whole self-esteem and financial, I mean, all of those things. And they really do get tied up, especially when we go back to our old friends, our old, it's just very strange how all of a sudden we can go from being happy, healthy with where we are to, really quickly.
Absolutely. I think we compare our insides to other people's outsides. And so when we look at social media or how people appear to be doing, sometimes we feel inadequate in comparison.
Right.
But we don't know the
Or we feel really good. Let's be honest.
I love that you're honest about that. That's hilarious. So yes. And I think that we do need to redefine success, that success is not just about financial success and money. We need to have a holistic definition of success that includes mental wellness, physical health, connected relationships, work-life balance, joy, happiness, spiritual well-being, all of that, and financial wellness. And then as far as women, that's something I'm really passionate
Mhm.
about, because I have noticed in my practice that, as women, we're told our whole life that we're not good at math.
Right.
And so many of us fear finances.
Mhm.
Money seems
Mhm.
scary, or it seems complex,
Mhm.
or we're told
We
that's
just don't
not
want to
something
do
we're
it.
gonna be
That's
good at,
me.
right? So we defer.
Mhm.
And so I've seen in a lot of the couples that I've counseled that are male, female,
Mhm.
that oftentimes there can be a power imbalance
Mhm.
if the woman is not financially literate.
Mhm.
So if she doesn't understand the bank accounts, or
Mhm.
the investment statements, or the investment
Mhm.
strategy, or their plan for retirement, or there isn't financial
Mhm.
transparency, so she doesn't even know how much money they have or
Mhm.
don't have, that's really not a good situation. And
Right.
so I really encourage
Mhm.
everyone to have financial literacy and to promote that
Mhm.
in our children at early
Mhm.
ages. And then to empower ourselves to be assertive and collaborative in our partnerships,
Mhm.
and have regular communication about money, like you mentioned, in our personal partnerships and
Mhm.
also business partnerships, and to be transparent. There's also financial infidelity that
Mhm.
occurs a lot
Right.
in
Mhm.
couples or even in business
Mhm.
partnerships. And so those are all issues that tools from
Mhm.
psychology can help people
Mhm.
resolve.
Right.
And with the definition of success being just around money, what is happening right now in the world is a World Health Organization study just came out that 785,000 people died last year
Mhm.
from overwork and burnout.
Wow.
And it's
So
staggering.
that's approaching 1 million people.
Yes. And they're saying that that's for people who work 55 hours a week or more.
Mhm.
And when I give my corporate trainings, which over the pandemic, I've been giving mental health awareness
Mhm.
trainings and promoting positive mental
Mhm.
health and resilience for global companies.
Mhm.
And I've had some companies hire me to talk about work-life balance
Mhm.
because everyone's stressed out with
Mhm.
the constant change and uncertainty from the pandemic. And one company said, we want you to help our staff with work-life balance, but we don't want you to tell them to work less, because we need them to work 80 to 100 hours per week.
Holy cow.
Totally unhealthy,
Mhm.
not good.
But they're
And
not commuting.
right, right. And actually the studies show that people
Mhm.
working from home actually have been working more hours
Right.
and
Mhm.
more
Yeah.
productive.
Mhm.
But that puts the onus on us as employees to create some structure
Mhm.
to our day, to plan for self-care and
Mhm.
accessing support, to set healthy boundaries
Mhm.
with work, to unplug from
Mhm.
technology, to practice mindfulness,
Mhm.
to connect with our loved ones so that we don't burn out.
Mhm.
And so my book also provides a lot of strategies for that
Mhm.
type of balance and
Right.
holistic wellness.
Mhm. And it's especially hard when you're the business owner, because you're thinking, you are thinking about your business a lot.
Yes.
24 hours a day, almost, it seems like, right? You even dream
Yes.
about it.
Yeah.
And we do think, I'm just going to send this one email. I know it's 10 o'clock at night, but I'm still going to send it. And setting boundaries. And I remember it's been, oh gosh, 25-ish years since I started my business and became home-based. And, the first year I about killed myself because I was 24/7, 7 days a week, and just and attending every meeting I could possibly go to. I mean, all these various things. And after a year, I thought, I can't do this. I
Good for
cannot
you.
keep this up. And so then I prioritized, okay, was I going to say that networking event because it was a good program? Okay, that's a good reason. Just to get out of the house, maybe not a good reason. Was I, wanting to have chicken for the 5th time that week? To see my friends or to network. I mean, so what was the priority? And of course, the pandemic forced us to do a lot of that. But I also had to have that conversation with my clients because they thought, well, she's home, So I can call her on a Sunday morning, or I can expect that she's going to respond to my email at midnight on Thursday night. And of course, time zones make things even more complicated. But, and I told them, I sat all my clients down and it came to money. And you're going to love this, because what I told them was I pretty much work 8 to 5. At that point, it was mountain time. If you want something on the Monday through Friday. So I was real specific about it. I said, I keep regular office hours, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. If you need something outside those hours, of course, I am more than happy to help. However, my hourly rate doubles. And they all went, okie dokie.
Brilliant.
And
I love that.
They just, and there are times where there are emergencies. And yes, I'm responding to emails at 10 o'clock at night, but I know, okay, if I start responding at 10 o'clock at night, then they're going to expect it. So, you can save them as drafts, all of those various things, because you're thinking, oh, I want to remember to do this, or, all those things. But when it came back to money, they all went, oh, all righty then. And so then they were more than happy to wait. And, and I mentioned time zones. I mean, when I moved here, so I'm in Eastern time zone, and I had a client in California. So, that's a major time difference. And they were expecting me to work at 6:30 at night, my time, because of course it was 3:30 for them.
I've had that too. Yes.
And I had what we call the come to Jesus meeting. And I said, you don't expect me to work at 6:30 my time, and I won't expect you to work at 4:30 a.m. your time. And that got them too. They were like,
good,
okay, fine.
You.
Now, obviously, you do have to adapt and say, okay, if it's an emergency. And so I tell my clients, if it is an emergency, you call, because that's what will get my attention. And I say, but everything else, it waits. And they really did figure out, oh yeah. But I have to try to keep those boundaries myself too. But if I know I'm going to be working, 9 o'clock at night, then I might take a nap in the afternoon. I like my naps.
Right.
So, I'm still kind of only working the same number of hours. They're just weird hours.
Yes, you're creating balance, and you're taking responsibility for your own self-care and wellness. And Dr. Phil said, we teach people how to treat us.
Right.
And so by being assertive, it really starts with self-care, self-love.
Right. Yeah. I could burn myself out, or.
Yes. And I've been burnt out as well. And it takes a lot to recover. And so for me, I had to learn what you learned, which was that you have to create those boundaries for yourself, whether it's time boundaries or financial boundaries. And you can express those to others in a way that's honest and diplomatic and clear. And people respect you for it. And otherwise you're veering into doormat, and you're going to cause yourself to become exhausted and burnt out, and maybe even resentful, or physically or mentally unwell. And so for me, when I became burnt out, I discovered meditation and yoga, which is meditation with movement, which are both mindfulness practices that really help you calm your mind and body and get centered in the here and now, because many of us spend time either ruminating about the past or worrying about the future, especially as business owners. And we need to learn how to kind of pause and reboot and get recentered and kind of let go and focus on the here and now and focus on our own wellness. And I like yoga because as you're breathing and you're doing the poses, you can't think about your business. You can't
right, because you have to focus on not falling over.
Yes, exactly. And so you get a break from yourself and your thoughts in some ways, and it fosters resilience. And so I think for each of us to have some wellness practice, maybe it's for you, maybe it's gardening, maybe it's artwork, maybe it's, prayer.
Wine. Oh,
in moderation.
Moderation. Yes.
Absolutely. And so, I just think that's a really important message that I want to share with people. And My book really is my baby. I
Mhm.
put my heart and soul in it. I
Mhm.
share a lot of my personal story in a
Mhm.
really vulnerable way, because I want to share with people the lessons that I learned, so
Mhm.
to save you the
Right.
pain
Mhm.
of those experiences. And then I share really inspirational, amazing stories from my clients.
Mhm.
And again, it's just chock full of tips and
Mhm.
takeaways to help you personally and
Mhm.
professionally. My book is also used as a corporate wellness
Mhm.
program. It's going to help you with your finances, your relationships,
Mhm.
and your relationship with yourself,
Mhm.
which really sets the tone
Right.
for everything
Mhm.
else.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. If you're not honest with yourself, then you can't be honest with anybody, because you're so busy, trying to be that hamster on that wheel, that, and that is where we have burnout. It's just, it's amazing. And, and I, I think the pandemic, yes, it's horrible and awful from the loss of lives and the sickness. And, we certainly don't wish people to have lost their businesses, but there was good and there was bad. The good for me was figuring out, I really don't need to do those in-person networking events. They
Yeah.
take 3-ish hours out of every day. And I, now my big thing is, and I'd have to put on shoes.
Yes.
But it's, was I going just to see the people, just to have the food? Now I tell you, Atlanta caterers, good stuff. Anybody who caters down in the South, it's really good stuff, and you usually need to diet afterwards. But, and I really miss the people. I'm clearly a social butterfly, but so I miss seeing the people, but I don't miss the getting ready for it, the driving, Atlanta driving. The programs were always good. And so I miss those. But when I sat down and thought about it and thought, have I lost business in the last 18 months because I'm not going to those? No. So okay, so either I wasn't working those right, which is highly possible, or it just wasn't where I was supposed to be. And so there's that. But I think, as you said, we've got a lot of people working from home now who never had to, so they are working more. I mean, I think every person I have talked to who used to be in an office and now are home, they've all to a person said they work more. And some of it is just, okay, I've used that extra hour that I commuted to do more work time. My husband uses that hour to exercise. So that's good. But
That's great.
but I think they are thinking, oh, my work computer's there, I could probably check my email right before I go to bed, things like that. And so that's not good. But then of course one of the biggest stressors is the fact that many women in particular had to actually leave the workforce because all of a sudden they were school teachers.
Yeah.
And so, now having to adjust back to that. And of course, the constant fear and threat is, I'm sending my kids off to school, but I don't know that they're going to be able to stay. I mean, the rates are going back up. So, I might be homeschooling again tomorrow. So that's, I mean, you talk about stress, holy schmoly.
Holy cow.
And so that's just kind of one of those things where it's funny, my phone is telling me that I'm zooming with you. Oh, but yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where the stresses of the pandemic, I mean, let alone I could get sick, I could die. I know people who are getting sick and who are dying. All of those other factors that came with the pandemic. I mean, the stress levels are just unbelievable. So what other tips do you have for people? Because we're still in very uncertain times. Am I going back into the office? Am I not going back into the office? Are my kids staying in school? Are my kids not staying in school? Yeah, I mean, all of those things. How in the heck do we deal with this?
Yes, absolutely. You're completely right that we've had multiple stressors. We've had the, constant uncertainty, transition, and change. We've had, political unrest and
Mhm.
divide. We've had
I live in
systemic,
Georgia.
yes, we've had systemic racism issues come to the
Mhm.
forefront, which, is triggering of trauma.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we've had, people worrying about their own health and safety and the health and safety of loved ones, people dealing with tremendous loss, grief and loss. There's been a huge increase in depression, anxiety, relationship conflict, substance abuse, domestic violence, even child abuse. And you're absolutely right that for many women, even prior to the pandemic, women have been responsible for about 80% of the child care and the household responsibility is on top of their jobs. And then with the kids e-learning or, learning virtually from home, it just as you said, required mostly women to make tremendous sacrifices in their careers. And just like you said, you're reevaluating how you're working. And right now we're going through what's called the Great Resignation, where 4 million people resigned from their jobs in April alone.
Right.
And in the first quarter of this year, 1.1 million people started their own businesses in the United States. So it's a time of great transformation. So my tips for moving through this are really every chapter of my book. So, but my tips are self-love, to prioritize your own self-care and well-being and make sure that you're eating right, you're exercising, you're sleeping, you're doing your hobbies, you're paying attention to your energy levels, you're silencing your inner saboteur and relating to yourself as you would your own loving parent or your own best friend. The more stress we have, the more self-care we need.
Right.
We really need to unplug from technology. We need to do some mindfulness practices and the more support we need. So we've had less support in the pandemic. So I really encourage people to reach out to loved ones, make sure that you're connecting with your friends, your family, your community. When I give global corporate trainings, most people say they're in need of emotional support and spiritual support.
Right. And because there for a while, you couldn't even go to church.
Exactly. And so, I think learning how to ask for what you need, a lot of us have barriers for asking for support. We think that we're going to be an imposition. Maybe we fear rejection. Maybe we don't take the time. And of course, me being a therapist, I think we can all benefit from therapy. And now therapy is over telehealth. So you can have therapy over HIPAA compliant platforms and insurance is covering it. Therapists are busier than ever. I think that's the silver lining of the pandemic is that people are having mental health awareness because we're all struggling in different ways.
They are reaching out, which is a very good thing.
It is a very good thing. And I also talk in my book about detachment, which is a mindfulness practice of separating from fear and anxiety and, really detaching from expectations. If we pin our hopes that everything's going to be normal in 2 weeks, we're going to set ourselves up for disappointment.
Right.
So,
and we're not going back to the way it was in January of 2020. It's just not going to happen, folks. Get over it.
So there's grief and loss. There's denial that comes with that. There's anger that comes with that.
Right. And we do have to deal with those things. I mean, I was flippant saying, get over it. But it's not, okay, now I'm over it. We have to deal with that process, then move on.
Practicing acceptance. And so I also encourage people to look at what you can control and what you can't control. And we can only control our own thoughts, our own emotions, choices, and behaviors. We can't control the pandemic, the Delta variant. We can't control other people, their thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and choices. And so we need to kind of hand that over and let that go and empower ourselves to focus on what we can.
Right.
So a lot of times in therapy, people spend a lot of time talking about their bosses or their partners or their family members, but we really have to take responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah. Right. A simple little example, a friend of mine on Facebook was bemoaning the fact that it's all gloom and doom, and she said, I hate reading this. I hate seeing this, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, do I respond? Do I not respond? But she's somebody that I care about. And I said, this is going to sound like a flip glib answer, but my answer is stop reading it. And I said, and I'm very serious about that. If it upsets you to read it, don't read it. The
Good
world will
advice.
go on if you don't go on Facebook and read every single comment, good and bad. I mean, that's the thing. Or, stop watching the news.
Correct.
My mom, bless her, she loves her major news networks, and she would have them on 24 hours a day. And I told her, I said, okay, they only have 4 stories. They just repeat them all the time. And of
Yes.
course they're biased. We
Yes.
all know that, that they are biased. But she noticed that she was getting tenser and tenser, and on her own. So bless her for this. She came up with this. Okay, I'm going to watch the news for an hour in the morning, make sure the world didn't come to an end overnight. She said, and then I changed to the Hallmark channel.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then she watches her local news, because you want to see what's going on and things like that. But then, she switches back, the Hallmark, as she calls it. And and she said, of course you can fall asleep, you can wander off, you can do whatever, and it is the Hallmark channel. Boy meets girl, boy marries girl.
yeah.
And now they are kind of getting, finally getting some well-needed diversity, but it doesn't even have to be the same movie. It's just,
Correct.
you just come back in and it's like, oh, okay, look. And that alone made a huge difference. And so for people, I say, turn the TV off, get off Facebook. And I make my living using Facebook, so I don't say that lightly, but take the walk, play with your cat, your kids, your dog, all of those various things. If something is upsetting you, leave it. You might have to go back to it. I mean, we're not saying quit your job and do all those various things, but as you said, what can you control?
Yes, that was such good advice. And I'm so glad for your mom. My advice is to look at the news in the morning so you're informed. If you want to look again, when you're done with your workday, but not too close to bedtime.
Mm-hmm. Oh
And
yes. And no murder, icky stories. No, you just
right.
have bad dreams, right?
You want to fill yourself with things
Mhm.
that are positive and
Mhm.
relaxing and hopeful.
Mhm.
And the news is
Mhm.
traumatizing. And same thing with scrolling through social media. It fuels depression.
Mhm.
You can look a couple times a day, but definitely, like you
Mhm.
said, taking time to
And
do some of
don't
those other
compare
practices.
yourself.
Correct.
That's the other thing is we've got the people who post the horrible, awful things, but for the most part, we might be glossing over those. So when you're comparing yourself, the person might be posting that they got this brand new fancy car, and you're thinking, oh, maybe I need a brand new fancy car. Well, they might have just taken out a loan that they can't afford to get the brand new fancy car.
Yes. It's an illusion.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we compare our insides to other people's outsides.
Mhm.
And a blessing of being a therapist is that I know that we all have our struggles.
Mhm.
None of us is perfect. We
Mhm.
all have our issues. And even if somebody looks like their life is fantastic on Facebook, they're dealing with stuff
Right.
too.
Mhm.
And so really honor your own strengths and
Mhm.
learn how to take loving care of yourself,
Mhm.
practice self-compassion. Like you said, take time for those simple
Mhm.
things that bring you joy and take a break from the
Mhm.
toxicity. And in my book, I also talk about kind of reevaluating your relationships and removing toxic relationships or setting different boundaries and
Mhm.
starting new relationships that lift you up or fill you up.
Right. I love it. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, we're almost at the top of the hour, Joyce. So tell people how they find you and connect with you online.
Thank you so much. So again, my name is Joyce Marter and my website is joycemarter.com, JoyceMarter.com. And my book is The Financial Mindset Fix, and it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Indie Books, Walmart, Target, you name it. I also have a webpage at financialmindsetfix.com. I'm on all social media as Joyce Marter. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you think of the book. And I would love to be a support and resource to anybody listening.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, this really has been a delightful conversation and hopefully helpful for people. And I think that the biggest thing, my takeaway is that, it's okay to say it's not okay. And really, if you need it, reach out. And there is nothing wrong with saying, I need help, and whether it's that you truly need professional help, or that maybe you just need to go over to those neighbors who, you've been comparing yourself to and say, hey, can we have a cup of coffee? I just need to talk to somebody besides my cats.
Yes.
And be thinking about those things, because you cannot help other people and you cannot be successful if you yourself aren't happy and healthy. So that's my biggest takeaways.
Well said, Deb. I think you could have contributed significantly to my book. You need to
And
have.
I haven't even read it yet. Oh my gosh.
I know.
I love it.
I love it
Well,
too.
I just said my final words. Do you have any final thoughts for everyone?
Well, I agree that I've really enjoyed talking with you. It's been a delightful conversation. I just wish everybody peace and prosperity, and to be gentle with yourselves, and let me know if I can help in any way.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, I have been having a delightful conversation with Joyce Marter. I'm Deb Creer. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.